Welcome to the N1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host as always, Marcus Sadhu, and today we are going to be chatting about how to balance healthy eating or a healthful lifestyle while still staying social, potentially having some meals out and a few drinks, and basically not being a hermit. So what sparked me to put this podcast together was an awesome question from one of my one-on-one coaching clients. And what she had noticed was that she was finding herself to be a bit all or nothing when it came to integrating her healthful lifestyle or going out with her friends. Meaning she'd either stay home solo and eat super healthfully, or she'd go out with her friends and really overdo the food and the booze. So first of all, this is a really common issue that pops up when you start to implement a healthier lifestyle. I've seen it over and over again in my clients. And what it really comes down to is balancing your needs and your wants. So when she stayed home solo and ate healthfully, she was stoked on her fat loss results and the way she felt physically. But she found herself to be a bit lonely because she wasn't filling her social bucket. But then, when she went out with friends, she was coming up short as far as her physical needs went because she was eating and drinking more than she wanted to be. However, her social needs weren't being met. Now, you might be thinking, well, why doesn't she just go out and not go overboard with the food and booze? I totally agree, but this takes some awareness and practice for a few reasons. One, when you're used to eating and drinking without any restraint in a given environment, going in and shifting that can be difficult. It's doable, but it's tough. So you might find this especially difficult with certain people because we all have different types of friends. For example, you may have a certain friend or friends that you go to when you need to have a heart-to-heart chat. You may have a different friend that you go to for some no bullshit advice. Or another friend might be your hiking buddy, while a different friend or group of friends might be more so party friends. So going out with your party friends and not partying is hard, just like expecting to party with your hiking buddy might not be the right fit. Now, of course, it's not like you can only do one activity with every friend, but for the sake of this example, I think you get the picture. If you ask your party friend to go for a hike on Saturday at 7 a.m., they're probably going to give you a strange look and say, why don't we do beer Saturday night instead? Secondly, a lot of folks find that they get peer pressure from their friends and family when they decide not to eat and or drink in the same way that they have in the past. So it's sort of a double whammy here as far as shifting these habits. People have an expectation of you based on how you've shown up in the past. So for example, if you're someone who's never had a drink in your life and you're now 40 years old, your friends just know that you're not going to drink because that's what they've come to expect. On the other hand, if you're known as more of a boozer, they've come to expect that you're going to drink in just about any scenario. So you showing up and not drinking as the booze hound is equally as strange as you showing up and drinking as the person who has never had a drop in their lives. These are obviously the two extremes, but our behavior shapes what people expect of us. So the awesome thing is that we can change that expectation of other folks. It'll take time, but it's totally doable. Now, it's worth noting, don't take the fact that your friends or family may make some snarky comments about you changing things up personally. First of all, if they can step outside of themselves and be a friend or a family member first, they're going to want what's truly best for you. However, to be honest, this is probably more rare than we'd hope because folks are mixed up in their own lives. They're focusing on themselves and their experience. Everyone's just doing the best that they can. Also, another reason why it's not personal to you necessarily, even though it can feel that way, is that when you show up and change the game in a sense, meaning you're having a beer or two instead of 6 or 8, and you're being more mindful of how you're eating, it can make the people around you second guess themselves. Typically, folks don't like this. This is exactly why most of us want to hang out with like-minded folks that have similar ideas, thoughts, beliefs, etc. So for example, if you show up and you're like, I'm just going to have a drink or two tonight, nothing crazy, but your friends are used to you having 6, 8, 10 drinks, they might begin to ask themselves questions in their own heads like, shit, well, if she's cutting down on her booze intake, should I be too? Or I don't think he had a problem. Does that mean I have a problem? And the list goes on. The wheels start turning in their heads. The main point here is that it's important not to take this personally, because folks want you to act in a certain way because it makes them feel comfortable, not because they're inherently wanting to sabotage your life in most cases. Now, coming back to you personally and the decisions that you're making around food and booze while meeting your social needs, again, this takes practice. So when you're making a lifestyle shift, don't expect yourself to get it perfect the first go around. It can take weeks to months. These are just a few reasons why behavior change is so difficult. Our lives are set up in a way that favors our current behaviors, right? Your life right now at this moment is perfectly constructed for where you're at physically, mentally, and emotionally at this point in time. So changing that takes some conscious effort and thought. It'll take time for your friends and family to get used to your new way of being, which is completely normal. You can't expect them to change in an instant, and you can think about it like this. Let's say you have a friend that is a take the shirt off their own back type of person and is always there for you at the drop of a hat, maybe even to their own detriment. And then one day they flip the switch and they're like, no, I need to put myself first and take care of my own shit. So the first, say, 5 to 10 times you ask them for something, you're expecting them to say yes without a doubt because they always have in the past. But this time they say no. You might be upset because you're used to this person showing up in a certain way. But over time, you get used to it. You realize that this is what's best for this individual and you adjust. Your expectations change. The relationship between you two shifts. It could actually end, but if you're committed to being friends, then you adjust the dials and you just make it work. So be mindful of not making the mistake of expecting your friends and family to change overnight. That's not the way this stuff works. It takes time, but showing up consistently in the same way will expedite the process. So be patient here, stick with it. So how do we balance all of our needs? So our physical, mental, emotional, and social requirements. This is going to be different for everyone because while we all have the same basic needs, they're vastly different in as far as how they're distributed between one another. So for example, socially, some folks recharge in a group. They actually get energy from hanging out with friends and family, whereas other people find it somewhat draining to hang out in a social setting, and they recharge in a solo environment. And then there's everything in between. It's just like nutrition, right? There is no one universal diet that works for all 7.7 billion people on the planet. Sure, we all need protein, carbohydrates, and fats to run physiological processes in our bodies, but the distribution, the amounts, and the types are going to vary based on the individual's goals, preferences, schedule, lifestyle, etc. So there's obviously no cookie-cutter approach to balancing your individual needs on a daily basis, and even if there was, they change day to day based on your experiences. So basically, you're going to have to consistently check in and ask yourself, what do I need right now? Do I need some social interaction or a quiet night in? Would hitting a coffee shop fill that gap, or do I feel like I need to have a few social drinks in more of a bar setting? There are endless scenarios, but it comes down to checking in with yourself and establishing what's best for you at any given moment while still keeping your health and fitness goals in mind. Now, as you can see, this is actually fairly complex. There are so many moving parts because when you insert your job, maybe kids, a spouse or partner, family obligations, etc., we've all got a lot on our plates. So it's a continuous balancing act that everyone goes through. You're not alone, I guarantee it. Every single human experiences this every day of their lives. Now, I'll use myself as an example. I work from my computer, so I travel a fair bit, and I've been on the road for a little over 3 months now by myself. So I'm constantly checking in and determining what I need from a physical, mental, emotional, and especially social standpoint because I don't have a bunch of friends to ring up everywhere I go. So typically when I wake up, I make some coffee and I get to work right away at my place, wherever I'm at that point in time. But if I wake up one day and I'm like, shit, I feel like I need a little more social interaction today, I might go work from a cafe instead of my own place. And honestly, sometimes it's not even that I need to chat with people specifically, but I just want people around. So it's more of a vibe thing. I also fill my social bucket with the gym because I meet all sorts of like-minded folks there no matter what city I'm in. Now, like anybody, there are days and nights where I stay in and do nothing, and there are days and nights where I go out and socialize a lot more. It totally varies based on what I feel like I need at the moment. And what I find helpful for myself is to set my baseline non-negotiables. So for me, eating healthfully and cooking most of my meals is essential. I just don't feel the same when I'm eating out too much. So this is a non-negotiable for me. I make this happen because I really feel it when I start to slip. I'm also sure to move enough and sleep properly. Both of these are non-negotiables as well because every area of my life suffers when these things aren't buttoned up. So no, I'm not perfect with this stuff, but I'm pretty darn good the vast majority of the time. Now, I also have baseline social needs, and for me, these tend to be a little more fluid for some reason, meaning they change a lot more day to day, and I find they're less predictable than, say, sleep or movement. Now, being that I want to eat, move, and sleep well, typically when I go out to eat, I pair that up with being social because it's like a two birds, one stone situation. So for example, if your goal is fat loss and you're struggling with the social aspect of things because you don't want to go out and eat and or drink too often, don't eat shit food by yourself because that's lose-lose in a situation like this, right? Why not fill both needs at once? Meaning, when you're going out to eat, make it a social thing with friends or family versus by yourself. Basically, you really want to make your meals at home count towards your fat loss goal. So don't order in pizza and eat it solo when you need to fill your social bucket as well. Go out for pizza with friends, meet that social need, and then make a healthful meal at home when you're solo. I hope that makes sense. When I explain this to my clients, I use the term picking your spots because eating healthfully can be more difficult at a restaurant, especially in a social situation. So it's better to quote unquote save those meals for when you're out and about with friends versus ordering pizza to your house and eating it on your own. Also, it's worth noting there are tons of ways to meet your health goals and your social needs at once. You can go for a walk or a hike, you can work out with a friend, you can do a group class, you can go for coffee instead of a beer, try something new like a language exchange or join a sports recreational team. There are so many creative ways to meet your needs that don't necessarily have to sabotage your fat loss goals. They can actually contribute to them. So to sum things up, guys, I fully acknowledge this is not easy, especially at the beginning when you're experimenting and trying things out, but you will get better if you stay consistent. This is a process I've been through myself, so I'm speaking from experience. You can't expect to get it perfect right off the bat. It is a continuous balance, and in order to maintain that balance, you need to check in with yourself constantly and just ask yourself, what am I needing right now, and how can I provide myself with it? This is actually one of the reasons why becoming a parent is so difficult at first, right? All of a sudden, you've got this little ball of needs that all come before your own, and it takes time to figure out a balance as far as taking care of your child as well as yourself. So be patient, work at it, and you'll only get better and better. Now, if you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can head over to n1fitness.com/coaching or click the link in the show notes below. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram at n1fitness and friend me up on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. I hope you found this episode useful, guys. If you'd like to hear me chat about more concepts like this, as far as weaving in the lifestyle pieces, let me know. This is more so the stuff that I deal with my one-on-one coaching clients, but I can totally share more of this stuff on the podcast. So I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. See ya.